Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity of having Now Creation share with you a very wonderful presentation by Bob Deb this evening. I think I've met Bob about 4 or 5 years ago, and that was kind of the beginning of a very nice relationship. I think I met him at Lynn's house in Pittsburgh, and then eventually he and his wife Amy came to the Unity Center in Pittsburgh. What I have found about Bob is that he is very genuine, very sincere, very informed. And what I most like about Bob is that he wants to expand. Part of his expansion has been his own podcast. Just a wonderful, wonderful opportunity of really living a spiritual life. And just visiting him at Bob Dove would just be a wonderful opportunity to look at all of the podcasts that he's presented for us. So, Bob, I just want you to know how delighted we are, truly, just delighted to have your presence this evening and to guide us in this very important area of fascia or fascia. Bob, please.
And that's a good point you make, Vince. It can be pronounced fascia or fascia, and you'll hear it many different ways. I was introduced to it as fascia, so that's what I tend to use in my pronunciation.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say that in thinking about the best way to sort of wrap my arms around this, because you need your fascia to wrap your arms around anything, I decided to do it as a story. Because it's a story of my life over the past month. And I think that you'll get an idea of how all this weaves together, because that's something else that fascia does. It weaves our bodies together. So I'm going to begin with just setting the stage for how all this came about. On May 3rd at 4 a.m., I was in a theta state in bed, and I was wrestling with a sense of incompleteness with someone who had done my podcast with me, and later offered to do a Reiki session on me. And I turned her down and just said that I already did Reiki shares with a number of people. And as I was considering my response to her at 4 a.m., what I realized was that she wasn't offering Reiki to me. She was making an offering of connection, of love, and of just wanting to be together. So I decided that I'd have to contact her again and apologize for my initial response of turning her down and accept her offer. That was followed, while I was still in this theta state, by a visit from Jesus. And that kind of shocked me because I'd never had a communication like that with Jesus before. But he came to me and he made the statement that you don't understand the power that you have, but you have a lot more power than you express right now. And suddenly I felt a jolt of electricity go through my entire body. And then he made another statement. He said, I know that you've been having trouble taking communion, But communion is not about my blood or my body. It's about acceptance of my energy. And that when you take communion, you're taking in my energy so that you can then pass that energy on. And that's the energy of love. So that was the end of that encounter. But it had followed me just getting my Reiki 2 certification from Lynn Alms, who's the Reiki master I've been working with. So a few days later, Lynn Alms and I drove up to a Reiki retreat at Crystal Bay near Lake George in the Adirondacks of New York. And we are going to a pre-conference workshop that was being done by Sharon Madison, who's the author of Spirit Speaks. And she was doing a presentation on the energy codes. And Lynn and I were attending this day-long presentation on the energy codes with Sharon Madison. The next day, and that was a pre-conference workshop, the next day the conference started. And again, Sharon Madison was the first presenter, and she did a presentation on distance healing with Reiki. Then the second presentation was by Sarah Saltro, and that was on fascinating fascia. So I just wanted to set the stage for you in terms of my mindset at the time and how energized I was at the point of this presentation on fascia. Now, before I get into what that presentation was, I'm going to give you a definition, and it's actually one that Vince sent me that was from his daily Om inspiration information that he gets. And I like this definition because it's pretty concise, but it gives you an entire picture. The simplest definition is that fascia is the connective tissue that connects all other tissues. Fascia is the webbing of the body. We've been taught that muscles and bones hold us up, but actually, if it wasn't for the fascia's webbing, causing compression, suspension, and tension, all of our parts would slosh to the floor. So fascia is the body scaffolding, a matrix of hydrated, semi-crystalline collagen fibers in varying tensile strengths and interweaving patterns that wrap around our organs, our bones, our tendons, our ligaments, our brain matter, just everything. Fascia takes on the form of whatever it's wrapping while maintaining separation. And it creates continuous connectivity throughout the body. Recent research has shown that all past traumas, both physical and mental, are stored within the fascia, causing its natural form to be disrupted and hardened, holding the body in a distressed state. With repetitive movements stored within the fascia, causing its natural form to be disrupted and hardened. And it's only with repetitive movements that you can get the flow of lymph throughout the body and circulation going again. So when we feel a knot in a muscle, it's actually a buildup of fluid and toxins and adhesions and scar tissue within the fascia that's unable to move within the lymphatic system of the body. So it's a huge deal, even though it was discarded typically by classic people working with the anatomy. Now, if you picture in your mind, if you've ever cooked chicken, and when you had the raw chicken, you pulled the skin off, and you saw a layer of tissue under that skin, and you had to cut that off usually, that's fascia. So it's a layer of tissue right under the skin. Now, a friend of mine, I say a friend, I just recently met her to do a podcast, and she's from Australia. She wrote this book on Path, and her name is Sherry Larice. Anyway, she introduced me to somebody who did a lot of YouTube videos about fascia. And his name is Gil Headley. And I'm going to introduce you to some other YouTube videos eventually. But Gil Headley has little short YouTube videos that are between 5 and 8 minutes long, but he's got about 10 of them just addressing different aspects of fascia. But one thing that she quotes in her book is that if we look under the skin, if we peel the skin off a person, the next layer of fascia is yellow. And it doesn't matter what the outer pigmentation of the skin is, everybody is yellow under that first layer of skin. His point being, there's absolutely no basis for racism because we are all yellow. And I found that pretty interesting. Anyway, let me get back to this Northeast Reiki retreat. So this particular presentation was not only fascinating to me, but it was pretty much new information to everybody in the room. There were about 80 people in the room. And the first thing the presenter said, her name was Sarah Soltro. The first thing Sarah said was, I'm one of those people who's from Missouri. I need proof. And she said, all this woo-woo stuff just doesn't cut it with me. I need scientific proof about how things work. And what I've discovered is that fascia provides me with the scientific proof of how Reiki works. So she said, fascia is the good stuff. It's all that connective tissue that is really a communication system. And it spreads that communication at the speed of sound. Now, to give you an idea, the nervous system within the body sends signals through your body anywhere from 7 to 170 miles per hour. When it comes to the fascia system, sending signals at the speed of sound, it goes at 720 miles per hour. So if you get that idea of just how quickly that is, I got introduced to what this speed of sound means when someone at the pre-conference workshop with Sharon Madison looked at all of us, and we had been sitting 9 of us in a room for 3 hours straight in our chairs, and everybody was pretty stiff. She took out a tuning fork and she went around to each person. She banged that tuning fork on a rubber disc and put the tuning fork right between our shoulder blades on our backs. And we had immediate relief. And everybody relaxed. And that gave me the idea, first of all, that I had to get one of those right away. So I ordered one. But and it came with a book called Human Tuning. But it's the whole idea of the way sound and vibration can really change all your feelings in the body. But a lot of that tension, as was mentioned when I read the definition of fascia, is stored in the fascia. So for instance, traumas from childhood on through the rest of your life, those traumas, the memory of those traumas is stored in your fascia unless you release them. So just getting back to this presentation that talked about this fascia being a communication system within the body, and that communication moves with the speed of sound. It also extends beyond the body as a communication system. Now, how does that work? Well, it's because it's a highly organized crystalline arrangement that is both bioelectric and biomagnetic. It works with the bioelectric and biomagnetic fields of the body. So that when you take something like a tuning fork and you work with frequencies and you work with sound, your fascia is able to receive that vibration and communicate it to the rest of the body. Now, because this was a Reiki conference, as Reiki practitioners, we were all interested in how this related to Reiki. So if you know anything about Reiki, we're talking about energy healing, an energy healing modality. And I always wondered, because when I studied and practiced Reiki, I had been told, in a way, it doesn't matter where you put your hands on the body knows where it needs that energy, and the energy will go where it's needed. So if you're not exactly sure where that energy is needed, don't worry about it, because the body knows. Well, how does the body know? It's because the fascia knows. The fascia knows where that trauma is stored, or where that gunk is stored, or where that blockage is stored. And that healing energy goes where it's needed. Now, something else that the presenter mentioned, and she was careful to say, some believe that fascia holds our belief system and maybe our consciousness. Now, she gets this from a couple scientists who she quotes during her talk. And I'll give you some information in a little bit, because you can find these people on YouTube and check out what they have to say. But she tried to make sure that everything she told us either had scientific fact behind it, or at least was expressed by a scientist saying, I believe that this is the case. He may not say, I have proof that this is the case, but he would say, I believe that this is the case because it seems to be true based on the research that I've done so far. So part of this is to say that the fascia is a webwork of awareness. It's actually a living matrix. And when I thought about those concepts and some of the additional research that I did on my own about fascia, all the scientists talk about fascia as being fractal. Fractal in that it's a connective tissue. It's also called an organ. Although one particular scientist said it's more than one organ, it's a series of organs. So I guess I should give you the caveat that everything I've studied says they've just touched the surface of what fascia can do and what it's all about. Because science has only taken fascia seriously for about the past 20, 25 years. It was always seen as a tissue that was in the way of the muscles and the bones and getting to the real stuff that they wanted to see and dissect and look at. And it's only recently that they've discovered that fascia is what it's all about. It takes care of everything else. And the more that they discover about fascia, the more mystery there is into how all of this works and how all of it connects. Because fascia is the only substance known to man as a tissue that can exist both as a solid and a liquid and a gas. And that's a huge mystery to how all that works in terms of the scientists. But not only is science interested in what fascia is all about, engineers are interested in what fascia is all about, because they're looking at trying to duplicate these qualities of fascia so that they can come up with building materials that are more organic than anything else. Because the strength and the elasticity of fascia just amazes science. So fascia is a living matrix, but where my mind went with this as I meditated on it was that we have this connective field out there that we call a matrix. And that's something that connects all of us. It's that quantum field. And fascia being fractal in and of itself, so that when we go from the tissue level to the cellular level, we're looking at exactly the same structures. Perhaps fascia in itself is part of a larger fractal organization that is that matrix that connects all of us. And I say that partly because of the crystalline structure of fascia. Fascia actually acts as a sender and as a receiver, pretty much like, the CB radios, the old crystal radios that could send and receive information. So there is a word, piezoelectricity. And I have this little chart I made, I'm calling spell check. I don't know if you can see how to spell piezoelectricity on there.
I don't think we can, Bob. I think you'd have to spell it for us, please.
All right, I'll spell it out for you.
Sure.
It starts with pi, P-I-E, and then Z-O, and then electricity.
P-I-E-Z-O,
Z-O.
piezoelectricity.
Right. Piezoelectric qualities of fascia means that it's like a quartz and other crystals. And quartz crystals are able to store energy. And they're typically the central piece of a ham radio. So this is actually an electronic network of receptors and transmitters within your body. Every cell in your body vibrates. So when we look at this vibration that's going on with this crystalline nature of your fascia, there's a constant small vibration going on in every cell there. Now, these vibrations are able to travel through space. And when I talked about the tuning fork works to help the body because it sets up a vibration that then the fascia connects to and eventually will vibrate at the same frequency as that tuning fork. For instance, the Earth has a particular frequency of vibration. The Heart Math Institute has been studying the Earth's vibration for years, and they have sensors all over the world that they've used to test things like the power of prayer in terms of changing the vibration of a particular region. And I'm getting off scope a little bit here, but this idea of the Earth vibration at a certain megahertz and being able to tune the body, excuse me, the body's vibration to that same frequency is a way to relax the body. So basically, and there is a scientist, his name is Tom Myers, and as early as 2009, he wrote that the fascia qualifies as a liquid crystal, and it can be tuned to frequencies or harmonized within itself. So I know that the field of sound healing is becoming more and more popular recently, and there are a lot of videos on YouTube about sound healing. But that's the way that sound healing works, is getting the body's frequencies in alignment with particular frequencies of sound that can relax the body. But it does more than that. It can break up some of these traumatic blockages within the fascia. So just as Reiki as a healing modality that uses energy that comes from and is channeled through the hands, it's the same with sound frequencies that can also break up some of those blockages in the body and help heal them. Okay. This presenter did talk a bit about trauma, and that trauma is with us for life because it's stored in the fascia. So if you don't do anything to release the trauma within your body, it's not only going to be there, but it's going to cause you problems, because it's from trauma and stress that all dis-ease comes from. So that if you're able to release all the trauma and stress and blockages in the body, then you're going to be healthy. And that, of course, is the basis for Reiki and sound healing and these other modalities. So there is a highly integrated microsystem of nerves that are connected to the fascia. And these qualities with the nerve connections from the fascia enable it to be our sixth sense. Now, I put quotations around that because that was from Richard Gerber, an MD, who wrote a book called The Crystalline Network of the Human Body. And that's what he calls fascia, the crystalline network of the human body. So getting back to this idea of piezoelectricity, there's an electric charge that accumulates in certain solid materials, such as crystals, some ceramics, and biological matter. So it isn't just a property of fascia, it's a property of other things like crystals. It can also be stored in DNA and various proteins. Part of why this is important is it responds to both pressure and to latent heat. And what that means is that if you push on your skin hard enough, you're going to feel some pain. Where that pain comes from is from the fascia. It's the fascia communicating to your brain, ouch. So it's really not from your nervous system. It's a communication from the fascia. Now, just some of the other research that I did, these aren't things that the presenter brought out, is that there are 3 different types of fascia. There's superficial fascia, and that's the subcutaneous adipose layer that's just beneath the skin. There's perifascia, which is very slippery and loose, and perifascia has this quality where it can actually become a liquid. It can be that fluid. And then there's deep fascia, which is a dense, fibrous type of tissue. The best place that I've seen, I saw a cross section of it on a leg. So it's sort of around your thigh muscle. The fascia around your thigh muscle is this dense, regular, fibrous, deep fascia. So I don't know. How are we doing on time? Okay, I'm going to tell you some more story.
Bob, let's try to maybe see if by 7, maybe we could kind of
Okay.
conclude things so that we could have questions then.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. There's one more set of points I want to make, and this is from a YouTube video called "Your Fascia is a Reflection of You," and basically, it's that your fascia reflects back to you who you are. So let me give you the 6 points that she made. The first is your daily habits, how you sit, how you stand, how you sleep, how you exercise. Your fascia takes the shape of what you usually do on a typical day. So it kind of conforms to your daily habits, but it's not only the habits of your physical self, but it also conforms to your thoughts. And I can tell you a little bit more about that, but let me get to our other points because these are all interconnected. So your fascia also reflects back how much movement you have or how much inactivity you participate in on any given day. If you don't move, your fascia will dehydrate. You'll lose mobility. You'll get stiff. And you probably know that. You just didn't know that it was because your fascia was hardening. Your nervous system is affected by your fascia. So basically, if you're in fear, fight, flight, or freeze responses, then that gets reflected back to you in that your fascia gets tense and it doesn't relax. Your emotions and your memory those memories actually are stored within your fascia. So your fascia is a record keeper. Excuse me. So it not only stores trauma, but it stores your memories. Your fascia helps you make sense of your world. And basically, it lets your body know, it lets your brain know where your body is in physical space. And it gives you a sense of everything that's going on in your body because it connects everything in your body to everything else. And then your fascia also gives your brain a sense of the environment and epigenetics. So not only your environment as it exists right now today, but your environment the whole time you were growing up. It's all stored in your fascia. So I know a lot of our senses, this is stored in our brain, but it's stored in our fascia. So I'm going to get back to my story because at the end of the Reiki retreat, I sat down to have breakfast with Sharon Madison. And I've mentioned before, Sharon Madison wrote the book, Spirit Speaks. And she looked at me in my shaky hand because I have these tremors. I've talked about those before. And she said, Bob, is there anything I could ask Spirit for you? And I said, well, yeah, I do have one question. What is the lesson that I'm supposed to learn from these tremors? Because everything in life is a lesson. So I want to know what I'm supposed to be learning. And she said, okay, I will contact Spirit and I'll get back to you. So true to her word, 2 days later, she sent me an email with 3 pages on it. Now I've read these 3 pages and I know they take 10 minutes. So I think we'll be done in time, Vince. But I want to read this to you. So this is Sharon saying, Dear Collective, we are here on behalf of our friend, Dr. Bob. Is this a good time to ask some really big questions? Thank you for knowing us, for knowing we have reverence for the sacred, and we have love for presence as well as ascension. How great that you can see our intentions that are for the highest good of all, meaning ourselves and our family, our friends, the community around us, and anyone we may encounter with our personality, our aura, and our presence of oneness. So we have some big questions. Thank you for your big answers. Dr. Bob wants to know, what's the lesson? So here's Spirit. What's the lesson is also asking, what's the purpose? Is why any soul may incarnate. Is full of beautiful answers. What's the lesson when a body has tremors? For one, there are outcomes to the choices we impose on the magnificent physical body. The body that hums along, but is also vulnerable to incoming, meaning what environment we put in it, as well as what environment we put it in. This magnificent machine will always do what is best to stay in perfect balance and in running order. But sometimes it gets overruled. So it's okay when it slows down or the balance gets off kilter sometimes, because then, yes, another lesson or another comment from the body, soul, and mind, and another comment from us is likely. A comment about life, truth, and reminders of our sacred purpose. For Dr. Bob, tremors have many opportunities for many comments and reminders and possibilities for insight. I bet he could name a few himself about what comes to light when we are in the middle of experiencing the body not behaving in a manner you might call 100%. What's the lesson? Keep receiving. Being vulnerable calls for an open heart to receive messages and reminders for all of us. Dr. Bob is a spokesman for all of us. He shares what he receives and knows and grows into. Some of that is because of tremors or any other means of vulnerability. All of that causes us sometimes to simply slow down and listen, right? So Sharon says, true, I get that. But sometimes we get tired of being vulnerable and long to be and feel whole again. We would like to see healing take place in this lifetime. Are you up for healing us here? Are you up for giving Dr. Bob direction for a positive path of healing so he can let go of the tremors? And the Spirit says, could it happen? Yes, of course. Will it happen? Let's just see. We are up for helping anyone and everyone. And Sharon says, good, because we want to have healing here. Let's get specific, because that could be helpful for discovering a path forward. Where do these tremors come from? That's specific. Yes, it is. Tremors come from a body's reaction, and specifically the nervous system's reaction to what it encounters. There are systems in place that allow for a smooth highway, and then sometimes a pothole develops that disrupts the flow. A pothole may occur from a physical issue like trauma, a blow to the body, an injury, etc. A pothole may develop internally from internal trauma or body chemistry. In Bob's case, we would say yes, the medication was too much. The body can often override chemistry issues, but then sometimes it's not, depending on the totality of what is going on. So for Dr. Bob, in this case, enough was enough, and now there are potholes in the highway. Sharon again. What are your recommendations for filling in the potholes? Is that possible? Is the body interested? Spirit. Yes, the body is always interested in wholeness and wellness and balance and coming to a state of perfection. Our recommendations? Let's ask the body, mind, and soul of Dr. Bob. Sharon. Higher self, body, mind, and soul. Are you on board for moving forward to the perfected state of being for a nervous system without potholes and a body without tremors? The response, humbly, yes, bring it on. Sharon, what do you need and want? The resources are many, just like you read and study and hear about. Yes, breathe. The resources of that are more than you can even imagine, although I know you try. Keep up with that because it is good. Imagine breathing like it was bringing in a spotlight to shine on the potholes. There are many, so it could take time. We recommend focusing on one area of the superhighway at a time. Let's say divide the body into areas like the fingers, hands, arms, shoulder, chest, neck, head, legs, ankles, feet. All have a part of the superhighway in it. Pick an area to work on for an entire day or 2 or 3. Breathe into it. Shine the spotlight on it. Allow time for healing. Then ask, are we complete? Breathe into an area, eventually every area, the spotlight of divine attention. Picture a superhighway of nerves like a perfected tube or straw. The walls must be completely smooth. Allow your breath to melt any small areas you come across that have like pits in the lining, like an erosion has happened, and there's a lesion. There are lesions in Dr. Bob's otherwise beautifully perfected highways. Imagine a melting from the light of the spotlight, producing a liquid goo, allowing a goo to resurface the lining so every millisection of the highway becomes completely smooth again and streamlined. The highway tubules become a perfected filament for zooming energy. So it is so. Sharon, I'm getting the picture, a beautiful picture of whizzing light traveling through circuits of tubules. I'm picturing crystalline tubules. Spirit, yes, and keep seeing them as smooth and strong without any crumbling or interferences or lesions or erosions. Even the slightest kink or pothole can disrupt. This system is so refined and so sensitive to even the slightest of chemistries. Medications can cause erosions in the walls of the circuits that disrupt this highly perfected state of travel. Breathing in light, creating photons of light, that's one resource. There are others. All the many resources have an impact and include all the positive thoughts, the chemistries of wonderful foods, and the chemistries produced by being in nature, doing things you love and intentionally connecting, like plugging into earth energies and sky energies. Plug in. There are great resources in your digestion. What food sources are good for nerve highways? We would say those that you already know of, vitamins B and D and E and A. The body sorts them all out for you. Aren't we magnificent? Right now, we love B and D. Sunshine helps. Sharon, and the big question, what about the medicines? Dr. Bob mentioned there was a thyroid issue. The response, well, souls do work hard trying to keep the body perfected. Souls with good intention, well, sometimes not perfect intentions, but there's a human set of procedures in place that has a protocol of diagnosis and prescription. It's not perfect, but there is no judgment here about choices and observations and recommendations and all that. We would offer this suggestion: stop the medication that has caused erosion. If the thyroid acts up, then proceed with new decisions at that point. Perhaps the thyroid has had enough pharmaceutical help for now. Perhaps it can move forward in balance. Right now, as we are having this conversation, the thyroid feels relief at the thought of not constantly regulating incoming chemistries that it does not recognize as easily absorbed. It's exhausted from the work. Sharon, you have spoken with great detail. I feel a love in the energy of this conversation, and I feel a longing to keep attending to the picture of and the feeling of that lovely balance of light and smoothness along the superhighway of the nervous system. I see the speed of traveling impulses. A perfective field is really something to see and imagine, even as I just see one tiny fragment of it, like an inch of what in reality is probably miles of highway. I'm also feeling sad for the many, many times I don't even pay attention to the magnificence happening inside my body. Without paying more attention, I'm imagining how abusive it could be when I'm not paying attention and I eat or drink funny and unrecognizable substances. Sigh, I've got a lot to learn. Spirit, well, souls and human bodies all get a chance to become mechanics for the maintenance of the human body. We get it though, seeing it from our perspective and you seeing it from your insights from just this conversation, we express again, the human body is one magnificent machine. Wow. Humanity barely understands even a fraction of what is really going on. haha, as the saying goes, you can't handle the truth. Saying so in a humorous fashion, a full-on look at the intricacies of the human body. Oh my, you probably couldn't handle it. Not even possible, although you can now and then get a glimpse through the eyes of your perceiving of energy. It's sort of like fully understanding oneness. We can only sustain a glimpse of the fullness of oneness. Similarly, we can only sustain a glimpse of the wonders of the human machine. Questions? A summary. Okay, so yes, your efforts required for this assignment to work with one lane of traffic at a time, breathing and imagining one section of the superhighway at a time is indeed a project. Let us assist. In the meantime, continue with your life of service and enjoyment, sleeping and observing and walking and giving and reading and sharing. It is all going in the right direction. No worries. You are loved with an everlasting love no matter what. Love into acceptance and love into gratitude, as you are already doing. It is powerful. And we see your shining light. Believe this. We bow our heads in acknowledgement of your courage and your bravery and willingness to continue the human story. Your story is a keynote address for a galaxy of souls who also have an energy of love and creatorship. Zoom on.
What was the last words?
Zoom on.
Zoom
Like
on.
we're on Zoom now.
Yeah, got it, got it. That's what I thought you said. Terrific.
Zoom on. Okay, I'm 1 minute past 7.
That was really, very, a very beautiful presentation, Bob. And a very beautiful sharing from Sharon as well. Both are very beautiful. And my feeling is that we don't have to finish this tonight. We might. So we might want to do this again or have a continuation of this into the future. This opens up many, many, many interesting things. What is the interesting thing when you were saying, breathe in the light? The first line of the unified chakra is, I breathe in light through the center of my heart. Just a very interesting thing. Just a very, very interesting thing. Anyways, having said that, let me first of all thank you, Bob, for a wonderful presentation. Just truly a wonderful presentation, and a lot, just an awful lot. Having said that, let me now invite questions, comments from others. So we'll spend our next half hour with the questions, comments, and again, this is a nice opportunity for us. So please feel very, very comfortable, and please share your questions. When Bob needs to hear, we all need to hear things that are on your mind. So please feel very comfortable to share. Patty, I think you're first there.
Hey there, this was really awesome. Well, just to say, well, thank you first. And then I subscribe to Daily Ohm, and they offer classes all the time. And they have one on fascia that I signed up for. I haven't participated in it yet, done a little reading about it, but you helped definitely clarify and bring more information and knowledge for me to understand the fascia. So my question, I always thought the skin was the largest organ in our body, but is it the fascia then? Or am I misinterpreting the skin for the fascia?
Well, I'm just telling you what I've heard about the fascia, but there are two. One side says the fascia is at least 3 different organs, and the other side says no, it's just the largest organ in the body. Because the fascia wraps around organs and wraps around bones. So it's everywhere the skin is, but it's also wrapping around those organs. So that's what would make it a larger organ than the skin, if you view it as all one.
Yeah, I understand that now. Thanks. And the other thing is, on the trauma that gets recorded in the fascia, is that the same as, but on the different parameters of tissue and cell, the cellular memory that a person's body will undertake when they've had trauma in their life, and like, especially if they're young, it gets a cellular memory about this traumatic event. Maybe they don't remember it as an adult or something, but it's embedded in their cells. Is that the same thing as the trauma that goes into the fascia?
I would say yes. The presenter actually took it back to, as the doctor pulls you out of the womb and smacks you on the butt, that's your first trauma experience. And that's held in the body, in the fascia.
Thanks, Bob. It's been a wonderful conversation to hear. And I know, like Vince said, hopefully we'll hear more about it, because sometimes I don't realize how much the internals of my body that we're learning have to do with our growth and spiritual enlightenment also. So thank you. And I know Tony has some comment.
If I can make a comment. Thank you, Bob. This is sorry I stepped in a minute late, but I had no idea the fascia had this any type of major role in our body's energetic system, and so this was really really enlightening to me. I have a couple tuning forks myself, and I'm in awe how they calm my body when I use them. It's magical almost. It is just and your couple comments that you made, I'd like to ask a question. You said that some believe that the fascia system might be both our belief system and maybe even our consciousness. That is to say, for the body, I guess. And then you said that it is also a sender and receiver. So this is my question. What came to mind is a supervisor up in an office overlooking a large complex factory. You know, he's laid out and he's put in motion plans, and he's watching communications. And is the fascia sort of like the supervisor or the overseer of the body's systems? Is that a fair statement? Or would that be a stretch?
Stretch is a good word for fascia.
Oh,
Because it's very elastic.
didn't mean that.
All right.
I guess
I don't see it. Yeah, I don't.
Elaborating on its role, its function in us is. It sounds like we don't know much about it.
Yeah, I see it more as the connector and the transmitter and the receiver, but I don't see it as the manager.
Okay.
And
yeah, very good.
yeah, but that's just me. And like I said, they're discovering new stuff every day about it.
Yeah,
and
it's fascinating. Yeah, I look forward to reading more on this and understanding its role in our lives. Thanks, Bob. Great presentation. Thank you.
I think that's an interesting point. If fascia is the transmitter, it does not necessarily mean that it's the initiator. So I think that is just such a huge thing, and I appreciate your answering of that question, Bob. Pat Olson.
Well, Bob, that was the most interesting, and it really hit home. I have polymyalgia, which is inflammation of the connective tissue. And I have been on steroids for close to 15 years, and it doesn't go away. I mean, I get a blood test every 6 months to measure the SED rate, how fast the red blood cells descend. And what I wanted to know, you said that it responds to pressure. Well, would deep tissue massage help at all, do you think?
Not
Because
big.
like it is in my legs mostly, and you can feel the hard parts in the tissue. And when I do press on it, like you said, there is pain, but that if I keep pressing there, it like moves away.
Yeah. Not being a medical professional, I don't, I'm going to give the caveat of anything I say is just.
Oh, I know. I will not sue you.
Because when I'm called Dr. Bob, that's for a PhD, not an MD.
Yeah, my grandson's the same way. So
Yeah. But a couple things. I don't know. Steroids are terrible things.
I know they are. And I keep saying I want to get off of them, but
Yeah. And deep tissue massage is a wonderful thing. And it's, if you go online on YouTube and just plug in the word fascia and massage,
mhm.
you'll get much more qualified people than me showing you how that works and why it works and how good it is for you.
Okay.
And again, Bob, I want to applaud
Thank
you
you.
for your answers on that too, that, it's not an MD degree, but I think your openness to receive the question and to perhaps give direction as to how one might go about it without trying to be a final word. Again, I applaud that. Just want you to know that.
And I appreciate that. Thank you, Bob.
Absolutely.
You're welcome.
And Janet and then Tara. Jen?
Yes, Bob, very interesting presentation. I'll ditto what everyone else has said. What really resonated with me and what I really liked was Sharon's response to you about the superhighway of nerves and muscles and the fascia and how to breathe into that area to work towards smoothing it. Real interesting because this is an area I'm trying to focus on. I wanted to kind of comment on Pat's question because I'm challenged with adhesions in that I've worked with PTs, multiple doctors for 18 years. It took me about 6 years to even get to the point where someone did something, but deep tissue massage does help. I can't tolerate that, but there's a method called the Graston method. I've used other modalities that, including ultrasound. There's a machine called a Hyvamat. I use lymphatic machines to try to smooth this in my own body because it's very, very problematic. But yeah, Pat, it's something to look into for sure. But the thing I would urge you to look at and ask about is the Graston method. And it basically breaks up that adhesion within your fascia and smooths it out. The other thing that helps a lot is to, do like a hot bath or put heat on it. That can help a lot too. Sometimes in my own body, it's like bubble wrap and it actually can pop. So anyhow, that's a couple ideas. But Bob, fascinating presentation and a lot of areas I would like to look into further.
Janet, could I ask you, how do you spell that? Grasping? Grasping?
Graston.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I'm going to make a comment too. This is something that I think many of you would enjoy. When I was doing the daily Om, in fact, it was Tara that sent me the article. So it wasn't my own daily Om. So I thank Tara on that. But I did check into it. And I'm going to just suggest this to you. You might want to write this person's name down. In fact, go to this on your browser. Bonnie, Bonnie, Krotzer, Krotzer. Bonnie Krotzer, Krotzer. Just type in that name and then scroll down to this. I think it's the third or fourth one. It's called Fascia Flows to Free Your Body. fascia flows to free your body. And then right next to it, it will say dailyom.com. Fascia flows to free your body, dailyom.com. And there are 10 lessons that you can take on fascia stretching. And I've decided to do that. And I've just done the first one, which I have found to be just interesting. It's easy to see someone else do them. It takes a while to get to do them yourself. But I think it'll be something very worthwhile. You can do the course for as little as $15. It's very, very interesting. So let me just kind of stop there for a moment. Bonnie Krotzer, Krotzer, fascia flows to free your body. And I really think it's really, really good. And I would suggest that as a perhaps therapy that is very interesting. It's based on contracting your body and then elongating it to stretch the fascia. So I just want to mention that because I know we're going to have more questions, probably we're going to have time for, so we may do this again. But in the meantime, I want to give you that reference. We have several questions coming up now. Tara, Judy, and then Marcia. Tara first.
Hi, Bob, first of all, thank you so much for the effort that you put into this presentation and for sharing all of the information that you've gathered. I found it to be very, very helpful. The thing that interests me probably just from the oneness perspective is that I honestly believe that the connection between one human being and another and another and another, albeit the oneness connection, is either supported by or used as some sort of mechanism in the cosmic arena for communication. I haven't actually read anything like that, but just the things that I've heard about it and now your presentation makes me look at that. And I think it's something that bears further research because, you know, the oneness connection, there are so many examples of someone not even in the presence of someone else and yet communicating, and the connection of the human race in general from a spiritual level. And it has to be something organic somewhere along the line. The energy is what I'm focusing on here. And I feel like the fascia is where the energy is being captured and transmitted and so forth. So if you think I'm wrong, I'd really like for you to let me know what you think on that. I would appreciate it. And once again, thank you so much.
Oh, I would say that nature offers us examples of it so that we can look at what that oneness is. If we think about an ant colony or a beehive, and that the communication among ants in an ant colony is instantaneous. And the same thing with a beehive.
Yes.
So you have a collective of organisms that respond to some central thought pattern, and it's instantaneous. So I truly believe that those kinds of things are offered to us to look at and say, oh, that's how this works.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, maybe we need to get the science of it to really believe that that's what's going on, but it's right there in front of us.
Yeah, I don't need the science of it, but I tell you, it's lovely to hear, you know, that it is being supported by science. I don't necessarily need it, but it's just nice for the affirmation, and it helps with the understanding.
Right, right.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Tara. Judy. Unmute, Judy.
Am I unmuted now?
You're unmuted. Go ahead, Judy.
Oh, okay. Oh, thank you so much, Bob, for all the work you've done on this topic, which is of great interest to me. I was unable to walk for a couple of years, and it was so interesting that I felt that what was holding me back was not so much a physical thing, but perhaps something that I had control over. And so I sought a lot of different forms of therapy for that. And one was called the MELT method. And it is an exercise program to exercise the fascia. And the theory is that the fascia, which does cover all of our body, it can become dried out as we age. And so using a roller to stimulate it, legs and arms and back, and even massaging the temples can free up the fascia. And is sort of like a sponge that is dried out. And so I do that on a regular basis, but I'm eager to learn more about the fascia, and the idea that it really is holding the memory of things from the past resonates with me. So I really appreciate this, and I do hope that we will discuss it more in the future. Thank you.
Excuse me,
I'm
before
sure.
you respond, Bob, hold on one second. Judy, would you please mention that method again, and would you spell it out slowly that you use?
It's MELT. It's a capital MELT. Like Tom, MELT.
And is that, it's obviously an acronym for?
Oh, I don't know what it's an acronym for, but I think if you go online, and even on YouTube, there are a lot of videos that show the exercises
For
on
MELT.
this MELT method. Yes.
Very good. Thank you very kind. Excuse me, Bob, for interrupting. Go ahead, please.
Judy, I'm sure along with that, you drink a lot of water, right?
Well, I do just in general because of, for good health. But I don't believe that's really something that's proposed on this. It's really more of stimulating the fascia.
Yeah. One of the causes of fascia getting stiff is dehydration, because the body, when you don't drink enough water and it starts to dehydrate, it'll pull that water and that moisture from anywhere it can find it in the body. And the fascia is one of those places where it'll pull the fluid from there and dry out the fascia. And it's sort of, it's part of that stiffening process. So that's an issue for some people. I know people who just don't drink water. They just can't do it for some reason. And it's really bad for the body. So.
And I've always been one of those people that water, it's hard for me to drink water. So I've learned to drink hot water and just keep sipping that. And I'm able to drink a lot of water in a day.
Yeah. Yeah, it helps to put lemon in it if you're drinking hot water.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Bob. Marcia.
Yes, thank you. That was fascinating, Bob, and you presented it just beautifully. Lots of interesting information, and I would like to pursue the topic on my own, and you mentioned several books during your presentation. So is there one in particular? Now, the one that you mentioned about Spirit Speaks, would you mention that as, is there one that you would recommend over others?
Well, I always recommend Spirit Speaks, but that doesn't address the fascia situation in particular.
Okay.
It's just a fascinating book. Well, let me, for the YouTube videos, there's a person named Gil Headley. And
Yeah,
that's
I wrote his name down.
Gilhedley.
Right. I
And
wrote
he's got all those short clips.
that. Okay.
The MD who's written a lot about this is Richard Gerber, Gerber.
Okay.
And his book is called The Crystalline Network of the Human Body.
Okay. The crystalline network of the human body.
But he's got a lot of YouTube videos, but they're usually about an hour long. So they're not as short as the other one.
Well,
Now
go ahead.
there's one that I think is the most satisfying and beautiful video of all of them. And it's called Strolling Under the Skin.
Okay.
Strolling.
Under the
Right,
skin.
like taking a walk,
Right.
strolling under the skin. And it's as poetic as that title.
Oh,
And the whole thing is set to Johann Strauss's waltz. So there's a Strauss waltz playing in the background.
and that's
Well,
a video. And that's a video you said?
Yes, it's on
Thank you.
YouTube.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And I guarantee you'll enjoy it.
Thank you. It was a wonderful presentation and just fascinating. Thank you so much, Bob.
Okay, one more YouTube video.
Okay, sure.
That last section that I wrapped up with rather quickly, which is your fascia is a reflection of you. And that's the title, Your Fascia is a Reflection of You,
Okay.
by Alicia Celeste, Elisha, Alicia, Celeste.
One more time, the title, Bob, please.
Your fascia is a reflection of you.
Mhm.
Now, she has a number of videos about fascia, but that one intrigued me the most.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. What a wealth of information you delivered to us. Thank you. Thank you.
Well,
So we are right about at our close now, and I always like to keep us within a time frame. So what I'm feeling is, first of all, this is recorded, so this will be under Sunday service, I believe, Tony, and we'll have this presented. So if you go to our website under Sunday service and just kind of scroll, go to YouTube, and it'll be right there. So just want to make sure we're aware of that. And so, Bob, we have 23 that have viewed this evening. So, and I feel that we have more questions, really, I think more things to discuss. And my presumption is our next time was going to be on Father's Day, and you felt that that might not be a good time for you.
not at 6 to 7:30, because that's dinner time, and
Of course.
I'm
So,
hoping to be at dinner with my kids.
well, of course.
course.
So what I'm just thinking is maybe you and I will talk, and perhaps we might just set another time where we might have a more question and answer period from people. And also, I would think that all of us have some homework to do, so that it would be a nice opportunity for us to do a little more work in this area. That seems like the right direction to go in. So, Bob, if you would, if you and I might think about, into the future in July sometime, give us some time to do some work. And if you wouldn't mind kind of maybe moderating it a little bit.
That would be fine.
Yeah,
Sure.
I think this has been an extremely Very worthwhile presentation, and obviously by the interest and the questions, and I know I didn't have a chance to answer my questions. So I have a lot, and know others have them as well. So you and I, Bob, will talk, okay? And we'll set this up for another time, hopefully maybe in July. We'll see if that can occur. I think we're right at the end of our session right now. So Bob, let me thank you very kindly for your wonderful presentation. And again, I remarked at the beginning, it's your expansion into spirituality and all of its ramifications that I think is so very important for all of us. Thank you, Bob. Thank you. I am an eternal being of light and love. Thus, only good can come to me, and only good can come from me. And we are eternal beings of light and love. Thus, only good can come to us, and only good can come from us. Namaste.
Thank you. That was just incredible, Bob.
It was. I enjoyed every minute and
Thank you,
know
Bob.
a lot more than I did before I come on here.
Look forward to
Thank you, Bob.
Thank
Thank
you.
you,
Thanks, Bob.
everyone, for your
Thank
comments.
you.
also.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
Thank
Terrific,
you.
terrific,
Good
terrific.
night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all. Good night, all. Namaste, dear ones.